Hello, and welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence.
And I'm Meg Hofdahl.
And today we're talking about Candyman, 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 Candyman! Meg, I can't believe you said the fifth one. Like, we're going to die for sure now.
You know, Bloody Mary didn't visit me ever in the mirror. Did Candyman ever visit you?
No. I mean, maybe I wish he had. No, I don't. It is one of these movies, and I don't know how you feel about this because we have not talked about it until this moment, but I saw it once in 1996. I have no memory of it. And as I watched it this week, I was like, where has this been all my life?
Yeah, I feel like before we did this whole experiment of Horror Rewind, I did not appreciate Clive Barker at all. And now I'm just like, I need to buy his books. I need to do everything because, yeah, where has this movie been all our lives? I watched it when I was a kid, and only certain things stuck in my head, like the bathroom scene, because of the poop. That stuck in my head, but really a lot of it was really fresh and I didn't remember. And so, I don't know, this was a delight.
I was completely blown away, and I was like, of course this is Clive Barker, and of course this is amazing. Why did I ever doubt that it wouldn't be? I'm excited. We'll probably talk more about this later, but I'm excited. Jordan Peele is rebooting this, and I think he's producing, and there's a female writer and director, African American, and I mean, it's going to be perfection.
Well, and Jordan Peele, I believe, co-wrote it as well, and also the description of it, and it's going to be coming out in June, is that now this area is gentrified, and I think it's going to be hilarious. I think they're going to be making fun of the certain subset of people that gentrify these areas. So I don't know, I just feel like it's going to be scary, but also maybe a little cheeky too. I'm excited.
We, as horror fans, what a time to be alive.
I know, seriously. And here we are sitting at GalaxyCon right now, and we've met a lot of horror fans here this weekend. And so, I don't know. You know what, though? I haven't seen any Candyman. I think that the cosplay needs to come back. Maybe with the reboot, it'll come back around.
Yes, we saw a couple of Ashes from Evil Dead, and did we see any other horror cosplay?
I saw 2 Jasons. And I've seen some good t-shirts and stuff like that, but I don't know if we've seen a lot of horror cosplay. But that's okay. That's okay. Oh, I think next year we're going to see a Candyman.
I'm excited. Now, do you have the info on this movie? Tell us about the history of it.
Okay, so Candyman is based on The Forbidden, which is a Clive Barker short story from the mid-1980s. So he had this thing called Books of Blood. It's a series of horror fiction collections, and there's 6 books in total, and they're just simply titled Volume 1 through Volume 6. And this is one of the stories in it. What's kind of interesting is that the story itself actually takes place in England because he's British. And so the screenwriters turned it into Chicago and really got into the sort of have and have-nots of Chicago rather than in Britain where the original story did. So the guy who directed it and wrote the screenplay, Bernard Rose, he also did Immortal Beloved, which I know is one of your favorites.
I love Gary Oldman. I love that freaking movie so much. I can't even tell you. The letter, it gets me every time.
Yeah, when I saw that, I'm like, I gotta write that down. He also did the horror film Paper House, and he worked on The Muppet Show and The Dark Crystal. So he's kind of versatile. So what happened was he met Clive Barker and said, I want to do The Forbidden as a film. And so Clive Barker gave him a lot of room to sort of fit it into Chicago and really focus the themes on race and social class in the U.S. rather than in Britain, like I said. So it was released in October of 1992 and grossed over $25 million. And there were 2 sequels, Candyman Farewell to the Flesh in 95 and Candyman Day of the Dead in 99. The first film is 74% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. The second is 28%, and the third is 13%. So it kind of goes in that way of sequels. Obviously, that's not always the case, but Tony Todd is in all 3, though. So that's kind of cool. So I went... Oh, and then another interesting thing to note is Eddie Murphy was the original choice of Candyman.
No, it wouldn't have been taken seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really picture it, but they said they couldn't afford him, which I think is one of the best happy accidents ever. That's just disturbing. But, okay, so what's interesting is I went into the history of where this came about. So the interesting thing to note, and I think there might be confusion about this, is Candyman did not exist before this story. So there is no urban legend of Candyman. It's not something that, he derived from anything. Now, you could argue that there are obviously influences from, like the Bloody Mary legend and things like that. But if you hear about Candyman, it's the film. It's not any sort of urban legend. So what happened was, wait. Okay, this is one of my favorite facts. Before I start getting into the background, I told Luke this the other day. So Tony Todd negotiated a bonus of $1,000 for every bee sting he suffered. So guess how many bee stings he got?
Well, I'm going to say 7.
He got 23 bee stings.
So he got $23,000?
Yes.
That is brilliant.
Isn't it? I mean, he's my hero. But, I mean, he had those bees in his mouth, and you could tell that was real. Like, that was the real deal. So that was upsetting. But I guess for him it worked out.
That is so cool. And brilliant negotiation.
We all need to learn a thing from Tony Todd. I hope I'm never in a situation where I have to negotiate on bee stings, though. Okay, so this is the rabbit hole I went down when I was researching. And it is so disturbing. So, a journalist named Steve Bojira, I don't know if I'm saying his last name right, he wrote a series of articles for the Chicago Reader in 1987 and 1990 about the murder of Ruthie Mae McCoy. And she...
This is real?
Yes, this is real. And if you recall in the film, it said what happened to Ruthie, and that's where they go in the film, right?
Oh my gosh. Okay, I've got chills.
So, I know, I have chills telling you. So, she lived in Chicago's Abbott Home housing project, which is very similar to what you see in the film. So, I decided to read both articles. I found them, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, and I think it's really important to understand this because I think it's really, at the heart of the film. So I'm going to read a few sections of it. So just realize this is written by Steve Bojira. I'm not taking credit. The article is titled, "They Came In Through the Bathroom Mirror." Kelly's face right now. A Murder in the Projects. So I'm just going to read a little bit, and I think it's fascinating. I love true crime behind the scenes. So Ruthie Mae McCoy was the type who talked to herself and cursed strangers on the street. When she called 911 to report that someone was coming through the medicine cabinet of her Abbott Homes apartment, she might have been hallucinating, but she wasn't. McCoy, 52, went through much of her life afraid. She was hounded by paranoia. Her fears weren't soothed by her dwelling place the last 4 years, a high-rise building in a near South Side Chicago housing authority project. She lived in one of the 7 15-story brown Y-shaped towers named the Grace Abbott Homes, the most dangerous buildings in the area. The buildings feature dark, malfunctioning elevators, pitch-black stairwells, and cocaine and PCP addicts on nearly every floor. So, Ruthie called 911, and she told them that somebody was coming in through her bathroom. But they were assigned over there with a disturbance with a neighbor, is what they called it, when she called. So, what happened was, 17 minutes later, they finally... they still hadn't arrived at her door after she'd called, saying that she was in big trouble. And somebody then called, a neighbor called, and said that she heard gunshots from the apartment. And then 25 minutes later, another neighbor said, 25 minutes after she called, said, I heard gunshots. The officers contacted the project office, but the janitor said he had no key for 1109. So at 9:48, the police left McCoy's building. They did not go in her apartment. and check to see what was happening. They just decided they didn't have a key. The following evening, police got a call from Deborah Lasley. She had seen police at McCoy's door the night before and was worried because her friend hadn't come to visit her, and they would visit every day. About a half dozen police officers and 4 or 5 security guards came. They knocked and called for her. Most of the police officers thought they ought to break down the door, but the security guards said no. And one of them raised the possibility of the tenants suing. So they left. So finally, after many days, they finally went in there. Basically what happened was, and what is important to note, they obviously found her dead in her apartment days later after she called 911 and nobody went to help. The police blamed it and said that people from the projects made fake calls all the time. And there's no study to show that that's true. But what happened was, just like in Candyman, the medicine cabinets didn't have wall between them. And the apartment next to her was vacant. And 2 men came in through her medicine cabinet, pushed it through, and killed her in order to rob her. And the reason they robbed her is because she had gotten a little bit more money from her disability. And she had bought herself a new coat, and so they knew she must have money. So she was murdered, and nothing was done about it. They did, and you have to understand, if they had come in right away, they might have even seen the guys in there. And also they know that the guys were in there when the police came because of, there was some evidence about the telephone. But her death didn't even prompt them to change the thing with the medicine cabinets. They took forever. One of her neighbors said she used to call the police frequently when she heard fights in the halls or sounds like someone was trying to break into an apartment. This is her quote, "After a while, I didn't bother no more. They wouldn't never come up. I think them police is scared of that building just as well as we were." So the police wouldn't help. It was a very sobering article to read, and I read part of the second article that was published in 1990, but I couldn't read it anymore because the 2 men got away with it and they weren't convicted because they didn't have enough evidence because the police waited days to check on her. So the director and writer of Candyman took this story and used it and kept her name the same to show us, even back then, the absolute disparate difference of being white and black in Chicago and being rich and poor in Chicago. And I think this is what I love about horror, because yes, there's this Candyman situation and it's scary and it's fun, but at the heart of it, it's really about race and socioeconomics. But it's so powerful that it just sweeps you away.
I am completely blown away. Like, I had no idea about any of that, and to know that that actually happened is terrifying. You know, it reminds me of like when Indigenous women go missing. You don't hear about it on the news. You know, this is something that we have billboards around our area about currently. You know, yet if a white woman goes missing, you know, everybody knows. And to think and to realize that this is true and happening, and the privileged, you know, I can't even become aware or you know, haven't been made aware of these differences. It's mind-boggling. So yes, thank you, horror, for bringing these important issues to light. The music in this movie is perfect, and just when it starts, how it's shot, these overhead shots and everything, you can just tell you're getting brought into this world, and it is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's shot very well, and again, it's showing those sort of 2 sides of the city, and right away I was just enthralled. And yeah, the music is just, I don't know what it is. I feel like of all genres, I feel like music is the most important in horror films, you know, to really set the scene. So What did you think about the little urban legend in the beginning with Ted Raimi as the bad boy?
I know, that was so funny. I was like, oh my God, it's Ted Raimi. And it was great. I love that little flashback, and it was perfect. It set it up well. And it was like, wait, what kind of movie is this going to be? But it drew me in, and I was ready.
And I think it's so funny because I think, again, it's something that people do, is where you take that legend and you kind of turn it into something that's going to threaten you. So it's very much like, a white girl babysitter, which of course is typical in urban legends, is the one murdered. So I thought that was kind of interesting and funny and sort of brought us into that world, but it's like about to pivot very quickly.
I love that these main characters, these women, aren't teenagers. They're women, they're academic, they're doing research, they're working on their thesis, and they're professionals. They have lots of conversations not about men, and it's so forward and progressive for that time, I feel like, or maybe even still now.
Yeah, it definitely passes the Bechdel test, so that's good. Yeah, they're having conversations. They're passionate. They are willing to go to a place that scares them in order to learn more, and I love that. Her best friend in the movie is also the best friend in Silence of the Lambs, which I thought was interesting, which is another movie about women really being passionate about their careers. So I thought that was kind of an interesting parallel.
Another interesting note is the men of science, these academic men, are just the biggest a-holes. And, they're like making fun of, them, these women, and, I already wrote that paper and blah, blah, blah. I didn't like her husband to begin with, but when it's revealed later, everything that has happened, it is so gut-wrenching and shocking and on point for him.
Yeah, Xander Berkeley, who most recently has been in The Walking Dead, I know, I thought it was really right away obvious that he was gaslighting her. And whether it was about, him cheating on her or her career, it just felt like right away he was so dismissive of her, and it was like, I just got the creeps. But they did it in such a way that he still seemed like, on the surface, like he was going to be okay. So they did such a good, subtle job of that. But yeah, when they're sitting at that dinner, and I wrote down what the dude said. What are the two most beautiful graduate students up to? It's like, F you. Seriously. Like, and they just were made to feel so small. But of course they didn't take it, which was great.
I know. They had the greatest comebacks and lines, and they, later... Virginia Madsen, she acknowledged, like, a white woman gets beat up and they lock the place down, yet somebody was murdered here and nothing happened. And they were talking about those things then.
I know, it's kind of amazing because I feel like there's this sort of idea of like, we feel like we're the first ones to be stumbling upon these sort of truths about life. But obviously, Bernard Rose, who did it, like, he read those articles and he realized, like, oh wow, like, this is fucked up, and he infuses the movie with that. And so it's nice to know that these things were so well known at the time and that people were fighting against them, but it also feels like, why aren't we further ahead now?
I like the historical the backstory that they give the Candyman, Tony Todd's character, like his pain and suffering. It's absolutely tragic. It was well thought out how they portrayed that and showed that. And it's not like, I don't know, he's killing for no reason, or, he's just a bad guy who has like mommy issues or something. It's a real, I feel like it comes from like a real place. And again, race and class and gender and all of those things are at the forefront of this movie.
Yeah, they weren't afraid to like go back and talk about slave history, and basically he was lynched. And so those are things that are kind of scary to talk about sometimes, but I like that they were very brave about it, and they were like, this is what's happened to him. And then you do feel this, I know it's hard to say empathy for him, but there is a force that's like moving him forward that is a lot better to understand than like Jason Voorhees, So all of these things, things that we're talking about, all these themes are so important, and obviously that's what I love about the movie. And at the same time, here comes this bathroom scene, and the gore, it is so disgusting, and it's like,
holy crap. And literally, no pun intended, but like it is so gross, and it's like I could almost smell it. It's so well done that it seems like it could be real.
She did such a great job, Virginia Madsen, of like acting like it stunk in there, which, I mean, yeah, you could believe it. And I was talking to Luke about it, and he'd never seen it, and I said it's so unapologetically brutal and violent, and but done so well and for such good purpose, and also just the horror aspect. But that bathroom scene, I'm like, oh my God, that little boy's got his penis ripped off. Like they were not afraid to be like, this is what happened. And then the little boy, like, sort of telling about it, the way that's like done, it was magnificent.
I can't believe it. Also, this theme that I was thinking about, and the Candyman story, I was thinking how the idea that we keep horror alive through our stories. Candyman can live because we give him power because we're talking about him. And I was thinking about that in the context of like school shooters or something, or serial killers. We're giving them that power by saying their names and reminding people about their crimes, or so we're sort of keeping them alive. And is that the right thing to do, or should we not say these names? Like I'm torn.
That's fascinating because it's like the idea of we are fascinated by these things, and we can't seem to stop talking about them and scaring the shit out of ourselves. But would Candyman exist if it wasn't passed in this sort of oral tradition around? And I don't know. I love the whole concept. I love that that's what they were studying. That sort of thing. I'm sure, is that something that as a communications professor let you talk about at all, like sort of oral histories?
Yeah, and culture, and how we view the world in a way that we're taught. Like there's nothing biological or genetic about it. It's literally all through communication, how we view the world, and through our upbringing, and that's no matter where you are on the planet, you're groomed to view the world a certain way because of how people tell you.
Well, and like I'm somebody, I've said many times I'm not religious, but my mom is superstitious. And to this day, I can be superstitious about things, which is so silly. I don't actually believe it, but I'll like go through the motions because that's what kind of got stuck in my mind, So it makes me think of that. And so, in the projects where, I mean, I don't think you and I can even fathom what life is like. I mean, reading this article, and I really encourage you listeners to read these articles in the Chicago Reader, because it also goes into Ruthie's background about her mental health, but also how she was getting back on her feet, and she was getting her GED, and she had all this life ahead of her. But it really paints a picture that I think most of us don't understand. And I think Candyman did a good job of depicting that. And I mean, again, I don't know because I've never been in the projects like that. But I feel scared for them when they're walking around just with no supernatural elements at all at first.
Yeah, absolutely. You were talking about the violence and the brutality. The next scene that really got me was that dog is decapitated and the baby is missing. Like, I didn't know because I did not remember what happened to the baby. And can you imagine being that mother? Can you imagine being accused of this and you don't have a memory of it? Like, what's more terrifying than thinking that you're losing your own mind?
Yeah, I mean, I'm such a big fan of that. And I think my favorite scene of the whole movie is when she wakes up and she's in the bathroom and there's blood all over her. I love that because, I don't know, well, first, right before that, I know this is weird, but is it me or does Candyman kind of have a sexy voice?
No, totally.
I was like, I get the hypnotic element because she's like hypnotized by his voice, and then she wakes up and she sees all that blood. She's like, is it my blood? Like, she's trying to figure it out. She goes out and sees that. And then the actress, after we've met her once before talking about how that baby is her everything, and then we see her anguish, that was amazing.
So amazing. And then the very next scene, Virginia Madsen in the police station sobbing and being told to remove her bloody clothes. It was so powerful and so well done and not sexualized or anything. It was just like putting yourself in that position and not knowing. I was just blown away.
Yeah, I mean, talk about empathy, because you know that she didn't go in there and do anything on purpose. And I think it was so matter of fact the way they had her take her clothes off, and I think that is the reality, I'm guessing, of a situation like that, and it must be so upsetting and horrible for people who've gone through traumas and things like that. I don't know. It really stuck with me. And then her just like asking her lawyer to like, it was really upsetting. And I don't know. I think that as I am a white woman, I think that I can see things through her eyes, but I'm hoping that with Candyman, the remake, that we really get to see it more through, the African American eyes. I don't know. Do you think that will be how we see it?
I'm guessing, but who knows? Because I trust Jordan Peele. I bet he's got the right angle. Whatever he's going to do, it's going to be great. Something, just era-wise. There's so much smoking in this movie. Could you believe it?
I know. I'm always like thrown off. I'm like, really? Okay. Good for you, I guess. I mean, it's just weird. It's just we're not used to it. I mean, unless you're watching Stranger Things or something. But, I wrote. There was something about my mind started going in this absurd thing where I wrote, "Stupid baby, you're in Candyman's lair," because the baby is so cute and he's laying there and he doesn't know. And then I was thinking it's been a month and the baby's still in there. And then I kept thinking about Candyman changing his diaper because he looked like he was very well taken care of. And so I'm like, oh my God, Candyman babysat that baby.
I mean, he found him food and stuff.
I was like, okay, I want to see that like spin-off movie of him taking care of that baby.
That would be a really cute short. Yes.
Yes. Or even like somebody could draw a little comic of him like trying to change a diaper with his hook hand.
I love it. Speaking of the hook hand, that was a really good jump scare with the hook coming out of the mirror. Do you remember that scene? I was like,
yes. And I like this whole idea of, he says at one point, I am your mirror and believe in me. And like all these sort of things and I feel like the mirror is a really important metaphor that maybe I don't understand quite yet what it means. I mean, obviously there's like obvious things that it means, but this whole idea of I am your mirror and he's reflecting back, I would love to delve deeper into that and what that means.
I think there's so many levels and layers to this movie and this story that I can't wait to rewatch it. Okay, she is being kept in this asylum. Apparently it's a month later and she doesn't even know. She watches that video with the doctor and she sees with her own eyes that Candyman was never there. So what is she to believe? Her escape, and she comes home and her husband literally has his new girlfriend moved in? Like, holy crap.
Yeah, so I wrote that was awesome when the smug therapist got it, by the way. That was great. And then I said, okay, here's a question for you, Kelly. Would you move in with where your boyfriend's wife killed her best friend and just paint the walls?
No. These people have some major problems.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like if that kind of murder had occurred there, maybe I wouldn't move in with my boyfriend into his house and just like hope that the pink walls helped. Which, by the way, I love when Virginia Madsen was like savage and told her it looked like shit. But yeah, I mean, there's so much going on. Of course, like she's at the point where it's like, whatever, my husband's an idiot. But that was kind of a great sort of feminist scene of her just being like, you fuckos.
And I can't remember what she says to him, but then it comes back again at the end, like, scared of something or whatever. Oh, it's just like so, like, yes.
Oh, I did also write down, there's a line about the pain will be exquisite, and that made me think of Hellraiser, and I feel like this is something that Clive Barker maybe plays around with a lot. I'm going to buy those books of his, because I feel like I would enjoy reading his fiction, but it seems like a theme that comes up in his work.
I think they did an amazing job of showing us and having us empathize with how alone she feels in this moment. So, she's believing that maybe she killed her best friend. Her husband doesn't even care that she was there. Nobody came to see her. She has no one left in the world. And yet, guess what? She's not giving up. She's still fighting, and she's going to go save that baby.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, as you were saying that, I was thinking about, I am your mirror, and you just described what Candyman felt. Like, he felt like he had no one in the world and he was alone and that, he fucked up. And I wonder if he was trying to get her to that place a little bit. You know what I mean? Of like desperation. So what do you think about the whole thing of like she's his lover from another era and that kind of thing?
I don't know. I think it's fine. I don't know if it was necessary, but it's cool for the lore.
Yeah, it's cool. I also wrote, and I'm so glad she went, because I didn't know. I had this feeling that she was going to die. I don't know if I remembered it, but I just felt like, it almost felt like it fit. Sometimes there's that final, actually almost all the time, there's that final girl and you feel like she's going to get through this. And I just had this feeling she wasn't going to. How about you?
Yeah, I felt like she wasn't either. And it was an appropriate ending, I thought. Like this whole pile, I mean, it's the foreshadowing and I had no memory, but just this pile of garbage and they're going to have a bonfire. And it's so well shot. Like when she's giving herself over to him, it's very old Hollywood. They just light up her eyes, and her eyes are beautiful and stunning. And everything is so cinematically perfect. And her climbing this pile of garbage to save the baby. These kids get a glimpse of that hook, and they think it's Candyman, of course. So they're going to set it on fire, and they have no idea. It is a hero's ending. We don't get to see women have heroic deaths. She's the hero.
Yeah, I mean, something we've discussed in our research is like sometimes maybe a woman will sacrifice herself for the final girl, but this was a time where the final girl sacrificed herself for this baby. And I don't know, I thought it was so cool, and it was gruesome too with the fire on her. But what do you think is the significance of her turning into Candyman?
I loved it, and I wish that the sequels were her.
Yeah, you're right. That would be amazing. I guess she wasn't up for it. And of course, we're so glad Tony Todd was. And maybe we'll have to try them even though they have bad reviews. But I wouldn't mind trying them to see what happens in them. But yeah, I loved it too. And I feel like this is one of those movies where I feel like I need to watch it again to really like soak in all the meaning. Because it was the heights of horror. And there was just so much to enjoy.
I freaking love the very end when she goes and gets Trevor and she repeats that line, like scared of something or whatever, and she freaking gets him, Meg. She gets him.
Yes. And then the dumb girlfriend goes in and gets to see his dead body. And it's like, yes, girl, you killed that guy. He was just dead weight. I love it. I love it. I love it. She just eviscerated him. It
was so great. Oh, I want to mention the guy who did the music was Philip Glass. And I want to buy the soundtrack, and I want it on repeat as, like, my theme song, driving to work. I don't know. But I feel like I felt empowered. I felt shock. I felt heartbreak. And now knowing that was based on a true story, I am so many things right now.
Yeah, I'm really appreciative that I got to find that article and sort of, get another window into the actual true reality of what it was like to live. There's in the article, there's a lot of talk, like he interviews the janitor there, and he talks about what it's like working there and stuff. And it very much felt like what they show in the movie. And it's like, for privileged people like us, it's really hard to like wrap our minds around. So I love the juxtaposition of that and then the supernatural.
Yes! Okay, let's rank this movie on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being you hated it, 10 being you think it's a perfect movie. Our scale, I mean, I'm thinking Candyman hook hands, but do you have something better?
How about toilet filled with bees?
How many toilets full of bees do you give Candyman?
I give it 9 toilets filled with bees. I thought it was great. I want to watch it again. It was amazing.
I'm giving it 10 out of 10. Toilets filled with bees, and please don't ever let there be a toilet filled with bees that I have to be anywhere near, because my God, that is true horror.
And then the graffiti written on the wall with, I don't know if you call it graffiti when it's made of poop, but
sweets to the sweet, like holy.
That's what I remember so much as a kid is the poop graffiti, but also the whole building being covered in graffiti, because I think I'd never seen anything like that before, and I remember the sweets. That's what stuck in my brain as a kid.
Oh, go if you have not seen Candyman ever or in a while, go check it out. It's on Netflix right now, currently, while we're recording this, and it's absolutely worth your time. So, until next time, we'll see you in the horror section.